Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. Well, this week's guitar lesson is designed to give you some different rhythm ideas, some different things you might play in your rhythm playing to spice it up. A lot of times we focus a lot of our energy on playing lead, but rhythm is just as important, maybe even more important, because it's sort of the foundation that lies underneath everything. And a really good rhythm player always catches my ear when I want to watch a band. So I'm going to show you a lot of different things that I've picked up through the years, and I've put everything into a standalone composition. So that's another added bonus to this, is that you can play this on your own. When you're done, you have a little composition that you can play for other people, and it works on an acoustic or electric guitar. And the other cool thing about it is there's no open strings in this. So we're going to be learning this in the key of C, but you can easily transpose this and play this in any key just by shifting it up or down the neck. So we're going to break it all down over the course of 2 videos. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and download and access that on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive, you can get that by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP272. Alright, so as I mentioned, we're going to be playing this song in the key of C, and this is a 1-4-5 chord format. That's your standard blues format, where the 1 chord is going to be a C chord, our 4 chord is going to be an F chord, and our 5 chord will be a G chord. So we have C, F, and G. And there's a G sharp in there as well, which I'll get to once we get to the 5 chord in this one place, which is a little unconventional, but other than that, it's just a 1-4-5 chord format. That's how you want to think about it. Now the song starts on the 5 chord, so it starts on the G, and then it goes down to the F, and then resolves down to the 1. So here's how I played it. I play it like this. And let's learn that first, and then I'll show you how to think about it so that you can start to use this style of rhythm playing when you improvise. So what I'm playing is a G triad, and I'm playing it up here. I've got my ring finger and my middle finger on the 12th fret, strings 2 and 3, and then I have my index finger on the 10th fret, string 1. And I'm playing those top 3 strings, and you get this really cool G triad. So remember that when you're improvising around a G chord, you have your G down here, and the one I know you know, and then you've got your G bar chord, and you've got one here if you're using that D chord shape, and then you can come up here and play one up here. Now the other way to think about this is the top part of your G chord using the A chord shape. This is getting into that whole caged thing. But if you think of your A chord down in first position, if you slide that all the way up so that your pinky is barring up here on the 12th fret, and you play those middle 4 strings, index finger goes down the 10th fret, 5th string, that's a G chord. That's sort of the bottom part of that triad. That's how I visualize that when I'm seeing that chord. So anyway, so we've got a G chord up here, and we're starting by hitting the 3rd string, and then I keep my right hand, so that's a downstroke, and then my right hand stays in motion like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. It never breaks. So watch when I play the rhythm for that. Just watch the right hand. Even when I switch to a different chord, it still never breaks. It's down, up, down, up, down, up. It's like playing drums. So that makes it easy in a way, because you just know that your hand, you know what your right hand needs to be doing, and it just needs to be going down, up, down, up, down, up. So, so you got the downstroke. There's 2 muted strums. So in between those, you have the muted strums, and you'll see that in the tablature. It makes it a little easier to follow. But there's an upstroke, and then 2 more muted strums. And then my pinky goes down on the 13th fret, 1st string, to create a G7 chord. Now I keep my index finger down here, so I keep everything that I've got down. I just add my pinky to that 13th fret, 1st string. And that's what converts it from the G major to the G7, just by adding the pinky there. And that's what it sounds like. Now you take that same thing, same chord shape rather, and you slide it down 2 frets, and now you'll be playing an F major. Add your pinky exactly the same way that you did over the G chord. So this time it's going down on the 11th fret, 1st string. And then that's converting your F into an F7. So you have a G, G7, F, F7. Now it's important for you to be able to find this chord shape based on your 1 chord. So let's take this out of the key of C just for a second. Let's play it in the key of A. So there's our A major bar chord, where you bar on the 5th fret. The 4 chord, using that little triad that we just learned, look where it's at. You can see it's right there. My index finger is going down on the root fret, which would be the 5th fret. So maybe a light bulb went on for some of you, and you realize, oh, okay, so I can get to that 4 chord really easy because it's connected to that 1 chord. That's how I think of it. So now you could use that in any key that you've got, any song that you're improvising over. You can also pick the notes out of the chords. And so you could use that in a solo. It starts to become very useful. So you're not limited to just using it when you're playing rhythm. But anyway, that's a digression. We're going back from the beginning. So we start with that downstroke on that 12th fret 3rd string. Then we come down to the 10th. And then we go to the 1 chord. And for that I'm playing a C7, just playing it once. I'm barring here on the 8th fret. I've got my ring finger on the 10th fret 5th string, and my middle finger is on the 9th fret 3rd string. And then I play this little lick that goes like this. And that's the turnaround. That gets us back to the 1 chord. So let me show you this lick. It's really cool, and we're going to touch on this in a few spots as we learn this rhythm here. But I'm barring the first 3 strings on the 10th fret, but I'm only playing strings 2 and 3. And then I'm doing a hammer-on with my middle finger to the 11th fret 2nd string. My ring finger goes down on the 12th fret 3rd string, like that. Now, here's where that lick lives so that you can use this in any key. First of all, connect it back to your 1 chord. That's the key of the song that we're in, so we're playing in the key of C. So that's where our C chord is. And you can picture the minor pentatonic scale for a minute, the pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. Right? You've got all those Chuck Berry licks that live right there, those double stops. Well, that's all I'm doing is I'm taking one of those, this one, and then I'm hammering on to pattern 2 of the minor pentatonic scale. So pattern 2 would be, and you can see these 2 notes are in pattern 2. So if you can visualize that, I'm starting in pattern 1 and I'm hammering on to pattern 2. Hopefully that clicks in your mind. So they're not just random notes. Now you can see them, and once you can see them, you can play them in any key. That's how I'd use it in G, right? So let's go back from the beginning. We got that far, and then we go. So that's a slide from pattern 2 to pattern 1, minor pentatonic scale for the key of C. We're on the 12th fret 3rd string. I slide down to the 10th fret, down to the 8th fret, and then the 10th fret 4th string, and then back to the 8th fret 3rd string. So we have, and then let's just walk it right down minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. So that's the 10th fret, 8th fret, 10th fret, string 4, and then string 5. And then once I get down to that note, make sure you play it with your ring finger so that you can play your G7 chord really easily. That note is already, that finger is already down for that chord, so it makes it easy. So you can go right into that chord. And the way that I'm making that chord, obviously we have that note, which is the 10th fret 5th string. My pinky goes down on the 10th fret 3rd string. My middle finger goes down on the 9th fret 4th string. And then I have my index finger down on the 8th fret 2nd string. And we're just playing those middle 4 strings. So that's a G7 chord. Now if you aren't familiar with this chord shape, just connect it back to the G chord shape that you used here, using the A chord shape out of Cage. If you can picture that, where my index finger is, I'm going to replace that with my ring finger. Now I have the G7 version. Maybe that's a light bulb for some of you, where if I said to do that for a D chord now, there's your D chord using that A chord shape, and then there's your D7 chord. You can see how they're kind of connected off of that D note there. Okay, so all of that is the intro. And let me play through that one more time slowly. Okay, now we get into the meat of the song, which goes like this. Now, it probably sounds complicated, but you've already covered some of this. You've already got that. and you'll see that you do once we get to it. But let's get into how to play it. So I'm starting again by playing that C7 chord, which we just learned. Now we're going to play a C triad, so I'm just playing the top part of your C major bar chord. So I'm going to bar the first 2 strings here on the 8th fret, and then my middle finger goes down on the 9th fret, 3rd string, and that's the C triad, and we're going to play that. We're going to slide that down 2 frets, which would be an A sharp or a B flat. And then I've got my ring finger barring the first 4 strings on the 10th fret, but we're going to only play strings 4, 3, and 2. Okay, so we have, and then a hammer-on. So I'm going to bar the first 4 strings here on the 8th fret, and I'm going to play strings 4, 3, and 2, and I'm going to do a hammer-on to the 9th fret, 3rd string. So all together, it goes like this. And then after that, I do an upstroke on the 2nd string behind this bar here on the 8th fret. So sounds like that. All right, so let's skip that intro and let's take it from that first C7, which sounds like this. And then I played, that's just right out of that minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. So there's your pattern 1, right? And we're going to play between the 10th fret and the 8th fret on the 4th string. We just go back and forth like this. And then play the 8th fret, 3rd string. That's just down, up, with the right hand. All right, and it's sort of a call and response, so think of that as the call. And then I came up here and went. And this is going back to that pattern 2 again, just like we did in the intro. So we're going to bar the first 3 strings here on the 10th fret, but we're only going to play strings 2 and 3, and then we're going to do that hammer-on, just like we did for the intro. So it's down, up with the right hand. And then slide that down 2 frets. So that's a really cool little call and response. It's very easy to play. You can use that now going forward in any key. So if I said pause the video and I want you to play that same lick but play it in the key of G, see if you can do it. So I'm going to assume you've paused the video and tried it yourself, but it would look like this. So it's a cool little rhythm fill that you can use when you're improvising your rhythm. All right, so now we have everything we're playing over the 1 chord. So we have, and I'll repeat it. Then we play. This is kind of getting into a Santana style thing, but I'm going into the 4 chord, so I'm going to play an F, but instead of just playing an F major, which I could have done, I'm playing an F9. I think it just sounds cool. And so to play that chord, I've got my middle finger and my ring finger both on the 8th fret, strings 5 and 3, and then I've got my index finger down on the 7th fret, string 4. And then my pinky comes up here and bars strings 1 and 2 on the 8th fret. Really cool chord. You hear that in a lot of blues songs. It's easy to slide into or slide up to. So I played that F9 and then went right back to pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale for C. So I'm barring the first 3 strings rather on the 8th fret, playing strings 2 and 3, and then my ring finger comes down on the 10th fret, string 4. Back and forth, just all downstrokes of the right hand. So from the 4 chord we have, then I go back, and then the second time I went, just changed it up a little bit. Easy to play, it's just barring the first 3 strings on the 10th fret, and then the first 3 strings on the 8th fret. But we're only playing strings 2 and 3. So that's the whole 4 chord, it just sounds like this. Then we go back to the 1 chord, back to that C7. That whole little lick there is what happens over the 1 chord, over the C chord. And then we come to the 5 chord. Now for that, it's that same 9 chord shape. So we learned that F9. We're going to take that and slide it up 2 frets. and that's going to be a G9. So I played it once, and then I did a muted strum there, and then played, and then I just took the top part of that chord, which is really just this. If I'm just barring the first 3 strings there on the 10th fret, that's what I'm doing when I'm playing the top part of that chord with all these fingers cramped in here. So I played that, and then my pinky came up to the 12th fret first string. You could use your ring finger for that. And that turns that into a G13 chord. So we go from the G9 up to the 13 just for a second, and then back to the G9. Pretty cool sound. That's a big takeaway too. So when you're playing, hopefully you should start to think, okay, so he's doing that over the 5 chord. So could I do that over any 5 chord? Yes. And could I do that same thing over a 4 chord? Yes, you could. So if we were playing in the key of A, for example, and it's the 4 chord, that's the D part, you could go back to the 1 chord. You can start to see how it starts to come out. Now if we, over the 5 chord, back to the 4 chord, huge takeaway right there. You can really use that in funk, blues, rhythm, slow blues. It can be used in a lot of things. So back to the G. We played that. Then I came up and played the same thing, but played everything up a half step or up a fret, and played a G sharp chord. Then there's a G sharp 13. Now why that? Well, that's a technique that's used a lot. It's somewhere straddling the fence between blues and jazz in my mind. You're kind of getting a little more over into the jazz side. But that's a technique I want you to walk away with. If you're improvising blues or writing a song and you get to the 5 chord, you can always go up a half step and then back to the 5 chord. It just sounds cool. So that's what I was doing there when I played that. And then we go back to the 1 chord, and I played it once, and then I played a lick that goes, sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually not that difficult to play. All right, and the way that we play that lick is walking right down minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1 for the key of C. We're going to start here on the 11th fret first string, and then we're going to come down to the 8th fret first string. We're going to do the same thing on the 2nd string, same frets. So now we have, and this is alternate picked, down, up, starts with the downstroke, and it's just alternate picked from there. And then once we get to that 8th fret 2nd string, go ahead and bar there so that you can play the 8th fret 1st string as your next note. So we have, and then we come back down the same pattern. We're going to go back to the 11th fret 2nd string, 8th fret 2nd string, and then the 10th fret 3rd string. So we have, and then we're going to go back to the 8th fret 2nd string and then back down to the 10th fret 3rd string with a bend and release, a full bend, and then down to the 8th fret 3rd string. So let's back it up from the beginning slowly. We have, and then to conclude it, we're just going to go from between the 10th fret and the 8th fret on the 4th string, and then 10th fret 5th string, back to the 8th fret 4th string, and then back to the 10th fret 5th string. So that's the little concluding lick. And once we get to that 10th fret 5th string, make sure you're playing that with your ring finger so that you can play that G7 chord, which I've already showed you. So backing up, we have, okay, I'm going to end this first video right there. That's a lot of information, and then we'll move on to part 2 where we go through a whole other set of rhythms. I'm going to save that for the second video. So let me back up and play through this entire first half. I'll play through it slowly so you have one final version of that, and then I'll see you in part 2 for the second half of the rhythm. Oh, and if you're not a premium member yet, make sure you come check that out. I put out high quality lessons like this every week, and I've been doing it for many years. And there's the entire back catalog of lesson material that you would have access to, and there's some courses and just a lot of learning that happens there. So if you're serious about wanting to learn how to play and improvise on the guitar, it's really, I think it's the best value out there. I don't think you're going to be able to beat it. But enough of that. Let's back up now and play through this first half. So starting from here, from the G7.